Well, if you've walked into a tackle shop recently, you'll notice the amount of different options you have when it comes to choosing a soft plastic lure. There's different sizes, different colors, different profiles. And if you're just getting into fishing, it can be daunting when it comes to choosing a packet. So I've got an array of different lures in front of me today, and I'm going to give you a bit of a guide when it comes to choosing your soft plastic lure. So as a bit of a starting point, let's look at those soft plastics that are going to do the work for you. What I mean by that is if you're just getting into lure fishing, then you want to choose a soft plastic that has a pretty good tail on it. Something like this, like a curly tail soft plastic grub, like this one, or a paddle tail soft plastic. And why they're great is because when that lure is sinking down in the water column, even when you're not giving the lure any action, it's gonna look alive and ready to go. That little tail there is gonna flicker and twirl as it sinks down. And same with this one here. Oh, nearly dropped it. The paddle tail is gonna beat back and forth and give some great vibrations out. So if you're just getting into soft plastic fishing and you're wondering, you know, what one you're gonna choose, I would look at one of these two, either a curly tail soft plastic or a paddle tail soft plastic. Now the opposite to that is a lure that's not going to give you a whole lot of action at all on the sink, and that of course is one that looks like this. You'll notice it doesn't have a tail on it, and that's because it's representing a little minnow style bait fish, one that hangs out in a school. Now don't think just because this doesn't have a tail, it doesn't have a place in your tackle box. These are excellent, but you've got to know how to use them. So how you do use them is you rig them on a jig head like this, and it means that you, the angler, has to give it all the action. So that means casting it out as far as you can, letting it sink to the bottom, and then jigging it up really quick and giving that lure some action. Unlike this one here, where the tail's gonna do all the work for you, this one means that you've got to do all the work. So it's something to note. If you're gonna buy this one, then you've got to be prepared to use it. Now, it doesn't matter what waterway you're in, all up the east coast of Australia, both fresh and salt water, I think we can all agree that everything eats a prawn or a shrimp. And that is why on the shelves of your local tackle shop, you'll see lures that look like this and like this. We call this a creature bait or a crustacean bait, and we call this a prawn or a shrimp imitation, and they certainly have their place. Now, unlike some of the other lures, these don't have a lot of action in them, but the good news is neither do prawns or shrimp in real life. If you see one flicking around the flats, it doesn't do a lot. It glides down to the bottom, waits there for a few moments, and then kicks up a bit of sand and repeats the process, and that is the idea behind these guys. It's up to you to give it a kick off the bottom and let it sink back down. So there's not a whole lot to these lures. There's no moving parts or curly tails, but the beauty is that they look like a shrimp, and that is what 9 times out of 10 the fish you're targeting will be looking to eat. Well, the next lure you might see at your local tackle shop is what we call soft vibes. Now these are relatively new to the market, and unlike these other lures, they have an integrated weight system. So for something like this, we rig it on a jig head. But this guy right here, he's got the weight already inside, and that is so when we lift him off the bottom, he's got a flat head and he's going to vibrate up in the water column, as does something like this. Now whilst they have different profiles, this is imitating something like a tailor or a herring and a very traditional bait fish profile, and this is like a shrimp or a prawn, they still give that same action on the rise. Now this is a pretty user-friendly lure. If you're looking just to get into lure fishing, then that's something that I would look at buying, because it's quite heavy, much heavier than something like this. You'll be able to cast it a long way, hits the bottom, vibrate it up, and there's not a lot to it. So check out these guys, the soft vibes. They come in a range of sizes too. That's the 100 mil, that's the 65 mil. This guy even goes up to a 120 mil. So that's a different type of lure that you might see on the shelves at your tackle shop.